long-awaited firmware update for the Sanremo YOU has finally been announced. I've been beta testing this for the past month now, so I wanted to record a deep dive of all the features and capabilities you expect, as well as sharing just a few of my personal opinions and feedback to Sanremo about future updates. I'll say this to start. This update feels way more like a feature pack. It is loaded with new stuff I'm sure will make owners very happy to see. Two quick things before we dive in. The first, at the time of publishing this video, the update itself hasn't been publicly released yet, and I'm not certain when that will be. I know that's super frustrating for owners, but I also think there are still some bugs that need to be ironed out before this is production ready. The second thing is I'm recording all this using my own Sanremo YOU that I've owned for nearly 2.5 years now. I do love this machine very much. This is not a video paid by Sanremo. They don't even know I'm making this, but I figured because this update is so significant, it's worth the time recording this for current owners and potential buyers that are interested in the machine. Let's go ahead and dive in. Starting off with some of the more immediate things you'll notice and basic settings that have been added. The first of which is we have a new UI option. It's one of those things that you might think are minor, but makes a big difference, at least for me. You can go back to the old UI, but for me, this one with the improved and larger touch zones for the profiles, as well as the larger touch zone for the purge button, just makes it a lot easier for me to use. Sanremo has also introduced two user modes, which they're calling Pro and Standard. The Standard mode streamlines the UI down to the basics, simplifying what users can see and interact with. I'll show you how that looks like. So while in standard mode, the new UI with the larger touch zones is the only display users see for starting profiles. And once one is started, rather than display a screen full of extraction details like temperature, pressure, and flow rate, it simplifies the screen to only show the shot timer and shot volume. Advanced users will likely stick with the Pro user mode, but this is a nice addition for users who prefer a simplified experience. There are two more new features within the display settings. One to control touch sensitivity, which I know has been an item of feedback for many owners, and the other is a small personalization feature that allows you to enter your name, which is then displayed on the new welcome graphic when you turn on your machine. Okay, so now let's discuss a new profiling capability that's available in the Pro user mode. Sanremo has added a fourth extraction stage, which can be enabled and configured after the pre-infusion stage. Sanremo is labeling this as espresso blooming. You're likely familiar with blooming if you make pour-overs. For espresso, this method has been popularized by Scott Rayo, in which he has shown that blooming espresso can improve the quality of espresso from lighter roasts, producing higher extractions without the harshness associated with over-extraction. You can check out his blog for more specifics on this method, but back to the YOU. The nice thing about how this has been implemented is this is a new extraction stage that could be fully customized. It gives you the ability to set pressure from 0 to 9 bars and define the duration of this stage. One more thing here, you don't see it yet, but there will be another option on the screen where you can define the pump ramp up speed from the blooming stage into the main infusion stage. You'll have 3 speed options: slow, medium, and fast. All in all, this additional stage allows for more profiling options and gives tinkers another option to play with. Okay, so let's see it in action now. I'm gonna zoom through the pre-infusion stage, which is about 7 seconds. Once that's done, you'll see a nice visual indicating that blooming has begun, and it'll display a timer countdown in seconds based on what you've configured in your preset. You could also trigger blooming when using the paddle instead of a program preset. I sped up the clip so you could see the full extraction. Once you're done with the blooming stage, you could hit the button again to stop it and use the paddle to move into the next extraction stage. One last thing to talk about here before we move on to the next major upgrade. Sanremo has also done a lot more work behind the scenes to develop a completely new algorithm to improve pump performance and management. This is probably the first thing I noticed when I installed the new update and pulled a shot. Among the improvements, you'll notice that the pump is generally quieter and is completely silent during lower pressure stages like pre-infusion and blooming. It's also a lot more reactive when getting up and down to pressure. So the last thing on this topic, Sanremo has added this new quick fill process, which is effectively going to drive up the RPM of the pump until it detects that the puck is fully saturated, and then it'll move on to the pre-infusion stage. So to conclude on this, although it took me some time to get used to, I'm really happy with the changes to how the pump reacts. It feels a little more responsive, and I'm very happy with the addition of the new extraction stage. All right, now let's move on to the final big addition with this update. In addition to the existing and, in my opinion, very accurate volumetric controls, this update now gives owners the ability to brew by weight, which is a feature that has been long requested by us owners, but without Bluetooth in the machine to connect to a scale, we didn't really know if this feature was ever going to come. Sanremo took another route and are now allowing apps to communicate with the YOU via WebSocket, which allows for real-time bi-directional communication. They partnered with BeanConquer, which is an app developed by an awesome guy named Lars. You might have already heard of it or used it yourself. It's pretty popular within the coffee community. With that integration, you can now brew by weight using any of the 27 Bluetooth scales that work with BeanConquer. You could download the app on iOS and Android on either your phone or your tablet. Here's a quick walkthrough of how to set up your Sanremo YOU in the BeanConquer app. From the home screen, click on Methods. Once there, click on the plus sign on the top right. You'll see an option to add a Sanremo YOU. Click on that, enter the basic information, and click Save. You'll then be taken to a device connection screen. From here, you'll need to know the IP address of your Sanremo YOU. Enter that in the URL field, and then you'll see a setting called residual lag time. Now, I recommend keeping the default value for now, but there are some factors that will determine how you adjust this, including the type of portafilter you use and the responsiveness of your scale. I'm using a naked portafilter and an Akai lunar scale and have seen the best results when this is set to 0.75. Now that you've connected your machine, the next step is to connect your scale. To do this, click on the top left menu bar and go to Settings. From here, navigate to the Bluetooth scale tab. My scale is already connected, but I'll disconnect and reconnect it to show you how straightforward the process is. Once the app discovers your scale, select it and click connect. The next step is optional, but if you're interested in tracking your beans and what you brew for each shot, go into the beans screen and add your beans there. All right, now that we have all the setup completed, it's time to get brewing. Click on Brews in the bottom nav, and once you're there, hit the plus icon on the top right. Now, a lot of the settings on the screen are actually optional except for the preparation method, but let me walk you through this. So if you have entered in your beans, you could select them from the drop-down menu here, then enter how many grams are going in. And if you've set up your grinder like I have, you could have that selected as well, along with the grind setting. And again, the important one is the preparation method. So select the Sanremo YOU that you connected. And again, the brew temperature is optional, but I like specifying it. Scrolling down to the next section, this is where you'll choose which profile you want to use for the shot, as well as specifying the brew weight target for the shot. In my case, I'm choosing P2 and setting a target weight of 32 grams. Now we're finally ready to start brewing. Scroll down a bit, see that play button, click on that, and that will trigger the shot to start. One of my favorite things about this new integration is this visual and real-time brewing information, which in my opinion are just way more intuitive than the ones in the Sanremo YOU. The profile I'm using here starts with a soft 7-second pre-infusion, then ramps up to 8 bars and brews until the target weight of 32 grams is reached, which as you can see was nearly spot on at 32.1 grams. I've seen as much as 0.5 grams plus or minus, so this is where you'll want to play around with that residual lag time setting. And I know that Lars, the developer of this app, continues to work really hard to optimize the algorithm for this function. Now before going off and drinking that espresso you just made, make sure to click the save button. Doing so will log this brew and allow you to repeat it really quickly with all the settings you've previously configured. So assuming you want to pull the same exact shot again, in the brew screen, click on the ellipsis button next to the brew you want to repeat, then click repeat. Like I said, all your settings will be retained, but there is one manual step you need to take for now, which is clicking on the restart timer button. Once you do that, you could then start your extraction. I'm not certain if Lars plans to automatically restart the timer, but for now, this is a manual step you need to remember to take. There's one final feature to talk about within the Bean Conqueror app, which is called Barista Mode. This is a unique experience for the Sanremo YOU, which is created and optimized for cafe or coffee cart environments where the priority is speed and efficiency. Don't worry though, home users can also use this feature, of course. When in Barista Mode, you'll notice that you don't have any fields to capture details about the beans you're using or grind settings. Instead, the screen is optimized for specifying brew targets for each profile, and rather than starting the extraction from the app, you could start it directly on the YOU, which is the likely preferred method in cafe environments. How I imagine this will work is that a cafe would have this app on a tablet on the side, starting shots directly on the YOU and having the app ensure that each shot is brewed to the same target weight, delivering consistent shot after shot. This feature is awesome in my opinion, and when you consider the temp stability of the YOU, this is such a major differentiating feature. Okay, it is time to wrap this video up, so I'll conclude with some final thoughts and feedback about this update while you watch some footage of me making some espresso. Like I mentioned at the start, this really does feel like a feature pack, so a big shout out to Sanremo and Lars from Bean Conqueror for all the hard work that went into this. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this update is completely free. There's nothing to buy, there's no expensive proprietary scale to purchase or fee to unlock app capabilities. Which takes me to my next point. I know a lot of owners were skeptical and worried about how invested Sanremo was in the YOU because of how long it has taken since the last update. This update has shown me personally that they're still very invested in it, and more importantly, they have a vision that will continue to make this machine more valuable to owners. With the ability to now communicate with the YOU via WebSocket, a lot more possibilities have now been opened, and I can see the next step being additional recipe management capabilities and potentially being able to control the pump in new ways. Now for some feedback to Sanremo. First, although I don't mind using companion apps, I now have two apps, the official Sanremo YOU app and now Bean Conqueror. And no offense Sanremo, but the only really useful function in your app is the ability to turn on and off the machine. So here is a suggestion, just port over your features to a dedicated section in Bean Conqueror and just retire your app if we don't need it. Second, there's one issue I see with the brew by weight functionality that could cause some user frustration. The way that profiles are set up today is with volumetric controls. So if the volume target is reached prior to the weight target in the app, the shot will stop. Moreover, if you have a profile that includes a stage for post-infusion and the weight target is reached prior to that stage starting, then the profiles are now technically operating differently than configured. I don't have a simple solution for this, by the way, so I hope and I'm sure the community will provide some ideas. Lastly, and on the topic of the community, while I know that managing a beta testing program is difficult on its own because you don't want leaks, I do think it would be great to have more folks from the community involved in the beta testing, especially with big updates like this one, where the more the update is stress tested, the better the final product comes out. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Leave your feedback in the comments and let me know what you want to see next.